Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, Shane, something exciting is happening.
What, Adam?
Grandia 1 and 2 are coming to the Switch in HD.
Hot take! Grandia is a series that started out on the Sega Saturn and eventually moved over to the PlayStation. Now, while they did make a sequel, the sequel was originally only available on the Dreamcast, and then that sequel made its way onto PCs. We haven't seen much of this game since that point, but now we have some pretty exciting news.
Right, so Grandia, the people who own the publishing rights to Grandia now, it's Gung Ho Entertainment Japan. Their American branch tweeted out just recently that they're going to be re-releasing Grandia 1 and Grandia 2 HD-ified for the Switch, which is really exciting because we have seen Grandia 2 come out. You said you own a copy of it on GOG?
I do, yes, I own it on GOG.com.
So that already has the sort of HD do-over, some visual things like textures and lighting and stuff. But the first Grandia, we haven't seen this game since 1999 on the Sony PlayStation. On the Saturn, it was never released here. It was only released in Japan. But yeah, like this is a really, really big deal. I didn't play Grandia 2 so much, but Grandia 1 is my game. I really dig it.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that this announcement initially came out around the time that Nintendo had their Indie Direct.
Right.
And just they didn't talk about this. They didn't mention it, and it kind of flew under the radar. But
I know in the comments they're going to say, "Well, it's not an indie. It's not an indie game," which I agree with. But it would have been nice for them to be like, "Oh yeah, and by the way."
Yeah,
because this is a huge deal.
This is the first time that the Grandia series has been made portable. It's the first time that on consoles we get to play it in high definition. This is a big deal. It really is. And for many of you out there that are big RPG fans, maybe you're into Final Fantasy, Earthbound, something like that, you would really like this because Grandia does something a little bit special when it comes to its combat system.
Yeah, so Grandia's combat system is like a time-based combat system, and we had seen that in some of the Final Fantasy titles as well.
Like tactics, right?
Well, not so much like tactics, more like Final Fantasy VII with the active time like bar.
Oh yes. Okay.
But where Grandia sort of is different is that you're dealing with this time bar, and depending on who attacks who at what time, you can kind of sort of like stall the enemy's moves. They can stall your moves. You have to like take into consideration a lot of different things. And not only is the time of the battle system important, but also where you are on the play field. You kind of have to like run up to monsters to do your combat moves.
So that's what I mean when I think of tactics, right? That idea.
Yeah.
Okay,
but you don't really choose necessarily where your character goes. I mean, I think you can if you defend, but they just naturally, like if you say attack, they'll run up and then attack. But you can only run so far and stuff. So there's a lot of variables there, which makes for a really exciting battle system.
Yeah, because battle systems in RPGs, you know?
Yeah. And this is a battle system that it was so cool that even Ubisoft kind of adopted it for Child of Light. Child of Light has a very similar battle system without all the movement and stuff.
And I think that's kind of what's interesting, because most RPGs that we play, a lot of them typically have that same kind of basic system, a boring system, a bad system.
Metal's boring.
Yeah, it's this idea that you attack and then you wait, and then it never really feels like there's a lot of flow and movement to it. But that's what Grandia tried to change. It wasn't the only one in it in like its lineage that tried to do that, but it was so nice to see something like that. Now, the Sega Saturn version you said is better than the PlayStation.
Yeah, originally the Grandia was developed for the Sega Saturn, and it was supposed to be Sega Saturn's like love letter to JRPGs. Like, okay, the Saturn isn't supposed to do 3D that well. Heck, this JRPG, even though we're going to have sprites in it, there are going to be 3D environments, and they looked great. It ran really well. The PlayStation 1 version of the game, it's good, but comparing it side by side next to the Saturn version, it just runs better on the Saturn.
See, that's just the thing. If you've never played with a Sega Saturn before, the system was primarily not focused as a 3D console, but they kind of brute forced it to get 3D graphics to work on there.
Yeah, it was like at the last minute, they're like, oh, put in another like chip and like
Tomb Raider, right? Like that happened. But basically, the idea is that Saturn is so much better performing with 2D assets. So even if there's a game that takes place in a 3D kind of environment, the 2D sprite assets should look a lot better just because there was a little bit more raw horsepower when it came to that.
Yeah. So when you're looking at 2D games, if you see like a 2D version of a game that's released on the Saturn and the PlayStation, like like 9 out of 10 times it runs much better on the Saturn than on the PlayStation. Like Marvel vs. Capcom.
Exactly. And with the RAM expansion as well, too, right?
Anyway.
So, do we know that we're getting the Saturn version?
No, we don't know that for sure. Actually, we know very little about these titles, but next month, or maybe it's at the end of this month, it's PAX West. No, it's at the end of this month.
Okay.
PAX West is going to be showing off more stuff about these titles, possibly. I think they're leaning more towards showing off Grandia 2. But yeah, they're supposed to be, like, they really did a good job when Grandia 2 was re-released in HD of making it look pretty and run really well. So I'm assuming that they're going to do all that they can for Grandia 1 as well, and it probably will perform more along the lines of the Saturn version.
Yeah, from my own experience on the GOG.com release of it, the PC version, it runs great. I was running it, I believe, at like 4K resolution, which you don't need to do, but it looks really clean. All the edges are like beautifully detailed, and it's not a game that's going to look like a modern game. Like, that's not what's going to happen here. They're not going back and remastering it. In fact, this is more akin to what we just saw with Shenmue, where they're taking the original assets and they're rendering it in a higher resolution. There's this idea too that a lot of people mentioned, which is a little bit wrong. They thought with Shenmue and other games like this, they were scaling the graphics up. That's not accurate. Scaling the graphics up is taking lower resolution graphics and rescaling them up, and it's not going to look all that great. It's better than having just like, the opposite way of having really low resolutions. But when you're natively rendering at higher resolutions, it's going to look a lot sharper. So on the Switch, portably, I'm hoping, because the game is old enough, we should probably get a 720p resolution on here. I'm hoping 60 frames per second. But even then, it's not super needed with this game. It's an RPG. RPGs typically don't need the super high frame rates. And technically, I'm in the belief sometimes that 30 frames per second on certain RPGs give this more cinematic feel that can kind of be nice. You know?
Yeah, some developers have used that cinematic term before.
I like it.
Grandia, the original one on the PlayStation, could chug during battles at some points because there's so much going on on the battle screen at the same time. You can have a bunch of enemies and your party as well moving around at the same time. But I'm really interested to see how the HD what I'll call it an up-res for lack of a better word, how it's going to look for Grandia 1, because Grandia 2, all the assets are polygonal, right? So seeing an HD version of like a Dreamcast game isn't nothing out of the ordinary. It's not anything too crazy. We've seen things with like emulators and stuff that have like up-res things even before official releases were made. But I know I'm kind of going. But Grandia 1, you got a bunch of sprites and pixel work. I want to see what the contrast is like, because we're going to have like these polygonal backgrounds and cities and stuff, but you're going to have your little sprite characters. So I want to see how all that looks.
Well, Adam, let's just ask. Maybe you might know this. Is there any RPG that was released on the Switch recently that might have inspired this? Anybody can think of that?
Yeah. I wonder if Octopath, if it will take like an Octopath Traveler. I'm pretty sure
Octopath Traveler has sold incredibly well. Yeah. And I think that inspired a bunch of developers to go, you guys like pixelated graphics in 3D? We got those. We got plenty of those. And that's what's happening. And you know, this is good. This is good. What's happening right now with the Nintendo Switch is exactly what I was hoping would happen. Having that portable asset, having it as a portable system, and then because the system is not as powerful as other systems, they're utilizing that by making games that utilize older technologies and older like visual styles to make these great experiences work for the reduced platform. This is something that I think needed to happen, and if more developers do this, look, I'm not saying that everyone out there is going to be super excited for Grandia. I know yourself, you are, because you're a big RPG fan. I think
any JRPG like fans will really be into this. And I think that some folks have kind of underestimated how much hunger there is for traditional JRPGs, because we did see a bit of a drought when Octopath came out. It got scooped up by everyone super duper quick.
And we've seen some more recent revivals of older Final Fantasy games that have been moved over from PC. They have like upscaled resolutions or redrawn assets and graphics, but we're typically not seeing stable releases of these on every platform like Final Fantasy VI. There is a Steam version of Final Fantasy VI. Now I understand.
I haven't heard great things.
Yes, there's a lot of folks out there that have had issues with that, right?
Same thing with Chrono Trigger. I heard there were some issues with Chrono Trigger as well.
Right. But if they know that there's an audience out there that is willing to get this stuff, they can make the premier version of these games on the Switch.
And they should be.
Yeah.
People are hungry for these things.
I agree. I mean, what would you consider is the best version of Chrono Trigger out there?
Probably the Nintendo DS version of Chrono Trigger. Yeah.
So we're looking at another Nintendo console. They can give you the same idea and the same experience. This is what's making me really excited about this, because for me, one of the biggest problems I've always had with an RPG is the idea that I'm locked at home with it. And if I want to experience it out anywhere where I might have more free time, that was always a limiting factor for me.
Yeah,
right?
and JRPGs, they work so well as a pick up and play, put to sleep sort of thing, because you know, you have these like mini battles and things. So I think it's perfect for on the go.
You yourself have talked to me consistently about the Vita and how the Vita was such this powerhouse for like a whole bunch of indie RPG stuff. Yeah. This is what the Vita was good at. Yep. And now that the Vita has basically gone away into the silent night, hated by its father at Sony. So, Sony, love you guys. You bombed the Vita. The idea
there's still a physical release of that Psygnosis game coming out on the Vita.
Sure there is. I'm happy for that. But even the PlayStation TV did not get the love it deserved.
Yeah,
but seeing all that happen on the Vita, it's awesome, because now the Switch can live up to that. We've had this debate and this conversation internally, and with you guys on the show too, where we've always talked about the Switch not being up to the task at doing what the other systems are doing. But if it finds this scope, if it finds this niche and it's capable of achieving it,
you don't have to compete in the exact same way with the other consoles. Exactly. You can do your own thing, like you mentioned. Take off where the Vita's left off, right? So there are some releases that were on the Vita that came to the Switch as well. Like I'm thinking about the Ys game. That Ys 8, I believe. Is on the Switch.
See, I for the longest time I was really hesitant on the belief that the Switch had a future, simply because I just didn't think modern game developers were going to want to sponsor it. And as we've seen in 2018, it's true, not a lot of people are making their bigger experiences for the Switch. We do have some experiences like the Doom and Wolfenstein that are surprisingly so are available on the Switch.
Doom Eternal's still supposedly day and date with the other consoles. Which is
so we are seeing this stuff happen, right? It's not that it's not there, but now that I'm seeing game developers go, okay, let's go back. Let's take more of these older experiences and move them forward. We're getting Windjammers, right? And now Windjammers 2 is coming out, but it's coming out exclusively for the Switch, because they're primarily focusing on that platform.
I just saw today, actually, that there's also a 40th anniversary SNK collection that's coming to the Switch as well, which is really, really exciting. And those are all older games, but they're repackaged in a very cool way.
I really think this is the way for it to happen. I think that these older RPGs, Xenogears. I mean, obviously Xenogears was available on the PlayStation originally. I would love to see that on the Switch.
It's on the PS Store, I believe, right now. Like a PS1 classic. But I would like a
portable. I mean, it was portable when you get it on PSP, right?
Yeah, and you can play it on the Vita.
I mean, these experiences, that's what made that system so good.
But I want physical editions, and I feel like it's a great time to have those on the Switch. By the way, we're not sure whether or not Grandia 1 or 2 are going to be getting a physical release, but I really hope so.
I really feel that the way we've been seeing games being released, and you must know this by now if you are a Switch player, that getting games on cartridges makes a lot more sense than downloading the games, because you have a limited amount of space on the Switch. Even though it's expandable, you're not going to be expanding it to the same sizes that you're going to be getting on the built-in like hard drives on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. So with the Switch, I think cartridges are going to become more like the physical release makes more sense. You know, it just does. And
I think with a Nintendo audience as well. For some reason, I when I think Nintendo, I think of like classic games that you do want on your shelf.
Yes,
right. There's a lot of collectors that love having their physical items, and very much with the Switch as well. And I believe the publisher Nicholas. Some people are a little iffy about Nicholas, but Nicholas has done some physical releases that come with little knickknacks and like colored instruction manuals and stuff. So
the manuals are so important to me. We were actually having a conversation today about how games barely have manuals anymore, but that's something you're still sort of seeing with the Switch release.
Anyway, we're getting a little sidetracked. Can I wrap up our conversation with like one final thought? Okay, Gung Ho Online is publishing Grandia 1 and 2 HD. They also own the rights to some other games. Game Arts has released another RPG series, one that Gung Ho could probably release. called Lunar, and it's my favorite game of all time, my favorite game series of all time, and I really, really want them to make other. I don't care if you HDify them, just get those games out on the Switch in a physical release, possibly release the game that never came out in North America, Lunar Walking School, which was Magic School Lunar, I believe, here. It was supposed to be. It was only released in Japan. I'm going crazy here. I just release the Lunar games, please. Gung Ho, you have the power. You did Silver Star Harmony. Xseed published it here, but you made it happen, man.
Yeah. Like this is it. The floodgates are opening with a bunch of older RPGs that now can. It's not just that they're, because it's not like the Switch is the most powerful system. The idea is now these games can be portable for many of them for the first time, which can greatly expand its audiences and its reach.
Yeah.
And with the Switch, the way it is right now, these developers better be getting their games out really quick before Nintendo starts flooding with their own stuff, because it's like it's open. The field's open.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it is. It's very clear right now, and we can kind of hear the wave coming.
Yeah, right.
Because we have had less first party titles being released.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's a beautiful point here where barely any first party games are coming out that aren't ports themselves from older releases. So now is the time for these developers to start talking about it, getting their games out there, because the Switch market isn't flooded with a lot of garbage. It's very clean. Anyone that sees a game released on the Switch is more excited about it now, which is one of the reasons why so many indie games are having so much success on there.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Lunar would be a big deal. They got to do it quick. So Gung Ho, if you're watching, contact us.
Do it anytime.
We might want to talk about that.
Happy.
But let us know what you think. Are you excited about any of these games we talked about? Are you excited about Grandia just coming out randomly again?
Yeah, Nintendo not even announcing it officially. It was just Gung Ho. That's like, sometime in winter you're going to be getting these two games that people freaking love.
Yeah. Do you think Nintendo should be talking about these a lot more? Let us know what you think in the comments below.